The Silent Heir. Part 1, The Will's Whisper. Richard Harper's death was supposed to be the end of a long chapter, a quiet close to a complicated life. But in the small Midwest town of Millfield, nothing about the Harper family was ever simple. The Harper estate loomed at the edge of town, a sprawling mansion that had seen better days but still radiated a stubborn kind of pride. Its brick facade, once red as autumn leaves, was now dulled by years of neglect and storm. Inside, the air hung heavy with the scent of old leather, polished wood, and secrets. Elizabeth Harper sat rigidly in the front row of the cramped law office, trying to keep her composure as the lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Grace Mills, cleared her throat and began. "We're gathered here today to honor the memory of Richard Harper," Grace said, voice steady but somber. "And to execute his last will and testament." Elizabeth glanced sideways at her younger brother, Michael, who was staring down at his knuckles, white from the tight grip he had on the edge of his chair. They hadn't spoken much since the funeral, and the tension between them felt like a live wire, crackling and ready to snap. Grace pulled a worn envelope from a mahogany box on the table, sealed with a heavy wax emblem bearing the Harper family crest. The room fell silent. "Mr. Harper's will is unusual," she said, opening the envelope slowly. "He left a substantial estate, including the family business, Harper Industries, but there's a condition. The estate will be inherited by whichever of his children can solve a family puzzle he's left behind." A ripple of confusion ran through the small crowd of relatives and family friends. Elizabeth's heart skipped. A puzzle? What the hell was her father playing at? Grace continued, "Inside this envelope is a key, and a note from Mr. Harper. The note reads, 'To my children, the truth is buried deeper than money. Find it, and you'll find your legacy.'" She laid a small, rusted key on the table, its surface scratched and worn like it had a story of its own. Michael leaned forward, voice tight. "A puzzle? This sounds like some bad thriller novel." Elizabeth's eyes narrowed. "Did Dad say why? Why hide it like this?" Grace shook her head. "No explanation, I'm afraid. Just the instructions to find the truth behind Harper Industries and the key to this mystery." The siblings exchanged a look, a mix of skepticism, curiosity, and something else, unease. Outside the courthouse, the summer sun baked the cracked sidewalks. Elizabeth lit a cigarette despite herself, the smoke curling around her fingers like a fragile thread tying her to the past. Michael stood beside her, arms crossed, jaw clenched. "This is insane," he muttered. "Dad never was the puzzle type." Elizabeth took a slow drag, eyes scanning the street like searching for answers in the bustle of strangers. "Maybe that's the point. Maybe he wanted us to dig up what he hid." Michael scoffed. "Or maybe he was just messing with us." Before Elizabeth could reply, her phone buzzed with a message, "Be careful who you trust. Not everyone wants the truth to come out." Her blood ran cold. Who could have sent that? And what truth were they talking about? That night, Elizabeth stood in the dim light of her childhood home, the old Harper mansion. Dust motes floated like tiny ghosts in the air. She held the rusty key in her palm, turning it over slowly. The house was silent, but she felt eyes watching her, shadows lurking just beyond the edges of the room. She made her way to the study, where her father spent countless hours. The desk was cluttered with papers, faded photographs, and an old journal with a cracked leather cover. Opening the journal, Elizabeth read the first entry. "Family is a fragile thing, built on secrets and half-truths. The past is never really gone, it waits, patient and unforgiving. To protect what I built, I had to bury more than money." Her heart pounded. What had he buried? And was it worth tearing her family apart to find out? The next morning, Michael called with news, "I got a lead. Met with some guy who claims he worked for Dad years ago. Says there's more to Harper Industries than anyone knows." Elizabeth frowned. "Who was he? What did he say?" "Not telling you everything yet. But let's just say, we're not the only ones looking." As they hung up, a black SUV rolled past her window slowly, then disappeared around the corner. Elizabeth's pulse quickened. The game had begun, and the stakes were higher than she'd imagined. The morning after the will reading, Elizabeth woke to the dull gray light filtering through the blinds of her childhood bedroom, the same room where she had fallen asleep countless times as a kid, dreaming about a future that now felt more like a tangled web than a clear path. Her phone buzzed again. Another anonymous text, "Trust no one. Look deeper." Elizabeth rubbed her eyes and sighed. Was this her father's way of turning the family drama into a damn mystery novel? Or was something darker really unfolding? Meanwhile, across town, Michael sat in a dimly lit diner sipping black coffee, staring at a crumpled business card he'd gotten from the man who claimed to have worked for their father. The card simply read, J. D. Collins, former Harper Industries consultant. A meeting in the shadows. Elizabeth agreed to meet Michael at the old diner, a greasy spoon stuck in the 70s, where the coffee was bitter but the secret sweeter. When she arrived, Michael was already there, eyes darting around nervously. "You really trust this guy?" she asked, sliding into the booth. Michael shrugged. "He has dirt. Stuff that could change everything about Dad's legacy." Elizabeth folded her arms. "Like what? You're not exactly known for your gold star detective skills." Michael smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Funny. J.D. told me Dad wasn't just a businessman, he was hiding something big. Something that could ruin the family name." Elizabeth leaned back, letting the words sink in. The Harper name was already cracking, was it about to shatter completely? Diary discoveries. Back at the mansion, Elizabeth dug through the old journal she'd found the night before. The next entry was dated nearly 30 years earlier. "If anyone finds this, know that the Harper legacy is built on lies. The factory isn't just about profit, it's about covering mistakes we can never admit." "What mistakes?" Elizabeth flipped the pages, finding references to a Project X, coded entries, and a name, Clara. She remembered her father mentioning an old family friend named Clara once. Was this a clue or just a dead end? Michael's secret tip. That afternoon, Michael met with J. D. Collins at a deserted park on the edge of town. "Tell me everything," Michael demanded. J. D., a grizzled man with sharp eyes, glanced around as if expecting to be followed. Richard Harper was scared. Not of competitors, but of what his own family might do to him. Michael frowned. "What do you mean?" J. D. hesitated, then pulled out a faded photograph showing a younger Richard standing with a woman who wasn't his wife. "This woman, she's the key to the whole puzzle. Your mother didn't know about her." Michael's mind reeled. Was there a secret sibling? A scandal buried deeper than anyone suspected? Siblings at war. That evening, the tension exploded. Elizabeth confronted Michael in the study. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" Michael's jaw tightened. "Because you'd judge me before I had the chance. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about everything Dad lied about." Elizabeth shot back, "Maybe Dad lied to protect us. Maybe we don't want to know the truth." Michael's eyes flashed. "Or maybe you're too scared to face it." The argument ended with a slammed door and two hearts heavier than before. The mysterious stranger. As the night deepened, Elizabeth heard a soft knock at the door. When she opened it, nobody was there, just a small envelope taped to the frame. Inside, a single Polaroid photo showed the Harper mansion, but from a vantage point that could only be the roof. Scribbled on the back, "Look up." Heart pounding, Elizabeth stepped outside and scanned the dark sky. From the rooftop of the garage, a faint glow shimmered. A ladder? How had she missed that? The night air hung heavy around the Harper estate, thick with the weight of things unspoken. Elizabeth climbed the ladder to the rooftop of the garage, heart hammering in her chest like a wild drum. Her fingers brushed against the rough metal, and the glow she'd seen earlier turned out to be the faint beam of a flashlight, someone was already there. "Who's there?" she called out, voice trembling but firm. No answer. Steeling herself, Elizabeth stepped onto the roof, the boards creaking underfoot. There, half hidden beneath an old tarp, was a rusted metal box. She knelt and fumbled with the lock. It clicked open with a shuddering sigh. Inside lay stacks of yellowed papers, bound with faded ribbon, and a battered leather-bound ledger. Her fingers trembled as she lifted the ledger. The Harper Industries financial records, but these weren't the clean, polished reports everyone else had seen. These were coded, cryptic entries hinting at off-the-books dealings, missing sums, and transactions that didn't add up. A debt too large to ignore. Back inside the mansion, Elizabeth spread the papers across the dining room table. Her phone buzzed, a text from Michael. "We need to talk. Now." Moments later, Michael burst through the front door, eyes sharp and wild. "You found it," he said, eyes darting around like they expected someone to listen in. Elizabeth nodded. "This ledger, it's worse than I thought. Dad was hiding serious debts. Money that vanished without a trace." Michael sank into a chair. "I've been talking to some people. Looks like Harper Industries was laundering money, funneling cash through shell companies. If this gets out, it could ruin everything." Elizabeth clenched her jaw. "Why would Dad do this? We thought he was the man who built this town." Michael shook his head. "Maybe he built it on lies. The mysterious stranger returns." Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Both siblings froze. When Elizabeth opened the door, no one was there, only a sleek black envelope lay on the doorstep. Inside, a single card, a blood-red Harper family crest, embossed and ominous. Below, a handwritten note, "Stop digging or lose everything." Elizabeth's hands shook. The warning was clear. Trust, but verify. The next day, Elizabeth and Michael met with a private investigator, a gruff woman named Sarah Holt, known for digging up dirt on powerful families. Sarah leafed through the ledger, her eyes narrowing. "This isn't just money laundering. Someone's trying to cover up something worse. Maybe fraud, maybe blackmail." Elizabeth swallowed. "Who would want to blackmail Dad?" Sarah's voice dropped. "That's what I'm here to find out." Sibling tensions reach boiling point. As they left Sarah's office, Michael pulled Elizabeth aside. "We can't trust anyone. Not even each other." Elizabeth's eyes flashed. "So what? We throw away everything because we're scared?" Michael's jaw tightened. "I'm just saying, be careful who you show this to." The unspoken accusation hung in the air. A late-night visitor. That night, Elizabeth was jolted awake by the sound of glass shattering. She crept downstairs and found the living room window smashed, papers scattered in the cold breeze. On the floor lay another note. "Last warning." Somewhere in the darkness, a shadow melted into the night. The family legacy was crumbling, and the deeper Elizabeth and Michael dug, the more dangerous their quest became. The question was no longer just about inheritance, it was about survival. The Harper mansion, once a symbol of pride, now felt like a cage, walls closing in with every secret revealed. Elizabeth sat in the dim light of the study, the torn ledger open before her, but her mind was somewhere else, tangled in memories she thought she'd buried. The phone rang. "Michael. I think you need to see this," he said, voice tight. "The long-lost letter." Michael handed Elizabeth an old, yellowed envelope. Inside was a letter, dated decades ago, addressed to Richard Harper. The contents were shocking: confessions of an affair, a child born in secret, and a plea for forgiveness. "Dad had a sibling we never knew about," Elizabeth whispered. Michael's face paled. "This changes everything. A secret sister?" The letter mentioned a woman named Clara, the same name Elizabeth had found in Dad's journal. Elizabeth's heart raced. Could Clara be the missing piece of their family puzzle? Michael frowned. "If she's out there, why didn't Dad ever talk about her? Family feud rekindled. Their mother, Inez, confronted in the kitchen, denied everything at first. But when Elizabeth pressed, Inez's composure cracked. There were things your father wanted to hide. Things that could destroy us all. Her eyes filled with tears. I wanted to protect you. Private investigators warning. Sarah Holt called that afternoon. I found something else, she said grimly. Clara's been missing for years. And there are signs someone doesn't want her found. Michael clenched his fists. Who? Sarah hesitated. That's the question. Betrayal within. That evening, a trusted family friend dropped a bombshell. He'd been offered a bribe to stay silent about Harper Industries' dirty secrets. Elizabeth realized the betrayal wasn't just from strangers, it was coming from inside. A disappearance. Suddenly, Michael's phone rang, a frantic call from Sarah. Clara's been spotted. But she's scared, and she's in danger. The siblings exchanged a look. This was no longer just about money or secrets. It was about finding the truth, before it disappeared forever. The night had a way of swallowing secrets whole in Millfield, but Elizabeth and Michael felt like prey trapped in a maze with no exit. After Sarah's frantic call about Clara's location, the siblings raced against time, knowing every second counted. The warning shots. Driving to a rundown motel on the outskirts of town, Elizabeth's phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. Stop now. Or next time, it won't be a warning. Michael slammed his fist on the steering wheel. They're watching us. Elizabeth's eyes hardened. Good. Let them watch. We're not backing down. A narrow escape. At the motel, they found Clara, a woman in her late 40s, eyes sharp with fear but fierce with resolve. I don't know who to trust anymore, Clara whispered. Your family, they're not what you think. Before they could ask more, headlights flooded the parking lot, a black SUV screeched to a halt. Shots rang out. Chaos and consequences. Michael pushed Clara behind the car as bullets shattered glass and tore into metal. Get in. Elizabeth yelled. They sped away, hearts pounding, knowing the attack wasn't random. Uncovering the truth. Safe for the moment, Clara revealed a chilling story. Richard Harper had been involved in a scheme that went beyond money, illegal deals, threats, and betrayals that led to her disappearance. I was the mistake he tried to erase, she said quietly. Elizabeth and Michael realized the stakes were higher than inheritance. Their family's survival depended on exposing a decades-old crime. The silent enemy. Back home, the siblings received a package, inside, a broken watch and a note. Tick-tock. Time's running out. The message was clear, someone was close, watching, waiting to silence them for good. Crossroads. Elizabeth looked at Michael. We can walk away. Let them have the fortune. Michael shook his head. And live with the lie? No way. Their decision sealed, they prepared for a final showdown, whatever the cost. The Harper estate felt colder than ever. The walls that once whispered family stories now echoed with silence, the kind that screams. Elizabeth and Michael knew the final piece of their father's puzzle was within reach. The key they'd found months ago had been leading them here, the hidden basement beneath the mansion, sealed for decades. The hidden room. With the rusty key trembling in Elizabeth's hand, they descended creaking stairs into the darkness. The air was thick with dust and forgotten memories. A single light bulb flickered on, revealing a room lined with filing cabinets, old crates, and an ancient safe. This is it, Michael said, voice barely above a whisper. They pried open the safe, revealing stacks of documents, contracts, ledgers, and a folder marked Project X. The truth unveiled. Inside the folder was a dossier detailing a secret deal between Richard Harper and a powerful local politician, a deal involving illegal land acquisitions, money laundering, and threats to anyone who dared ask questions. The scandal explained everything: Clara's disappearance, the bribes, and the attempts to silence the family. A phone call from the past. As they sifted through papers, Elizabeth's phone rang. The caller ID was blocked. "Who's this?" she demanded. A cold voice answered, "You're getting too close. Walk away now, or everything you love will burn." The line went dead. Allies and enemies. With no one to trust, Elizabeth and Michael turned to Sarah Holt, the PI, who uncovered that the politician was still active and had ties to law enforcement. They had to act fast. The confrontation. In a tense meeting, Elizabeth confronted the politician, secretly recording the conversation. He denied everything, until Elizabeth played back a recording of a bribery negotiation. The man's face twisted in rage, but he knew the game was up. A family reclaimed. With evidence in hand, Elizabeth and Michael exposed the truth to the town. The scandal rocked Millfield, but it also brought justice. Though the inheritance was tainted, the siblings realized that reclaiming their family's honor was worth more than money. The courtroom was packed. Millfield's residents, local reporters, and even a few familiar faces from Harper Industries gathered to witness the final chapter of the Harper family saga. Elizabeth stood beside Michael, their faces marked by exhaustion but shining with resolve. Months of digging through lies, betrayals, and danger had led them here. Judge Myers cleared his throat and addressed the room. "Today, we bring closure to a long and painful chapter, the case of Richard Harper's estate and the uncovering of a web of corruption that has affected this community for decades. Truth, justice, and consequences." The evidence Elizabeth and Michael had gathered exposed the corrupt politician and others involved in the cover-up. Arrests were made. Some familiar faces were forced to confront their deeds in public. Despite the scandal, the siblings inherited what remained of Harper Industries, a company battered but salvageable. More importantly, they reclaimed the family's dignity. Healing old wounds. In the quiet moments after the trial, Elizabeth and Michael met Clara for the first time in years. The reunion was tentative but genuine, a chance to rebuild what had been lost. Clara looked around the once-forsaken mansion, a small smile breaking through her guarded expression. "Maybe this time, we can make it right. A new beginning." The siblings vowed to run the company with transparency and integrity. They knew the road ahead would be tough, but the lessons of the past had forged a bond stronger than money or power. Elizabeth glanced at Michael. "Dad's legacy was complicated, but we're the ones who decide what comes next." Michael grinned, the tension between them finally easing. "And maybe, just maybe, we'll actually get along." Final reflection. As the sun set over Millfield, the Harper mansion no longer felt like a prison. It was a home, imperfect, scarred, but full of hope. The silent heir was no longer a mystery. It was the family they chose to be. The end.